Hello, happy Tuesday, happy ad drop waiver wire day. Lots to talk about this week. A lot of names, a lot of weird little injuries, not necessarily season ending like Odell Beckham Jr. There's others that are notable, others that are completely up in the air. A lot of question marks for this week, but we will get into all of those. As always on Tuesday nights, joined by Luke and Tanner. How's it going, boys?
Uh,
Going good, going good.
I don't think we really need to delay this any longer than we need to or than we have. Quarterbacks is probably the least demanding, least interesting position week to week in terms of injuries. People have stayed relatively healthy. Very little movement in terms of who's getting the jobs and whatnot. Obviously, Tagovailoa making his debut this week against the Rams. He's on the pickup radar, I guess. We'll see if we want to talk about him. But the first name I'd like to talk about is Joe Burrow, somehow under that 60% threshold that we will be using, at least trying to stay with for ad drop candidates here. I have Joe Burrow at 55% owned in ESPN leagues. Obviously leads the league in pass attempts. He's had 300-yard games, I think, in all but two. Had a 400-yard game last week. Plays Tennessee this week. Not necessarily scary. Tanner, what do you think about Joe Burrow?
yeah, he just fits under that 60% mark, like you said, and he really shouldn't be there at this point. I was going to bring up over 300 yards and 5 of 7, like you said, and he was one of my QB streamers this week on my streamer article. It felt like a very easy pick going against the Browns this week. He's got weapons for days in T. Higgins. T. Higgins had an injury, so that's something to monitor. I think AJ Green has looked good the last 2 weeks, even though maybe he hasn't been getting it done for fantasy. Like, this is still a guy that hasn't played in a long time, and maybe it was just taking a little bit. But I think he looks good. Tyler Boyd. This offense looks awesome, and they look like kind of a fantasy goldmine right now. And Tennessee, they're a well-coached team, but their defense isn't that scary. And absolutely, Joe Burrow should be owned. I feel 100% confident starting him on pretty much a weekly basis at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tanner. Especially if you're someone who has like Deshaun Watson this week who's on a bye. Joe Burrow needs to be on your team. Zach, you said that he leads the league in pass attempts. I mean, that's just fantasy gold right there for a quarterback. You kind of mentioned the weapons around him. T. Higgins, AJ Green's look better. Tyler Boyd is good. Joe Burrow just looks like a stud to me. He looks like he knows how to play in NFL. I think last week was a great week for him to show that he is, a starting quarterback in this league. I'm just excited that it might be a really tight race for Rookie of the Year here with Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. So that'll be fun to watch coming down the stretch.
Yeah, I just wrote up an article today on FanDuel about offensive Rookie of the Year odds and stuff. Joe Burrow is getting completely disrespected in terms of where he's getting placed. I think Herbert was like minus 125. Joe Burrow was like plus 220. Just big separation. But yeah, he looks unbelievable. He fits the bill. The only knock, honestly, I have against him is that I think he can get his head taken off pretty much every other play. And that's not, mostly not, I guess, his fault. And until it happens, I guess we should just keep riding with him for fantasy. I probably should have set up top who's on bye this week, just in case you haven't necessarily looked at your team's lineup and you're not 100% sure. We have the Cardinals, Washington football team, Jaguars, and Houston on bye. Monday night game is Tampa versus the Giants. We already have Chris Godwin out for that one. Really interesting early week scratch. They didn't really want to, leave any mystery, I guess. Not that Bruce Arians is a very subtle guy, I suppose, but whatever. Works for me. We can talk about Scotty Miller and stuff a little bit later. Well, let's go to the next quarterback I have here. I would assume pretty popular streamer choice, Tanner, this week. Teddy Bridgewater against Atlanta on Thursday Night Football. 38% owned. That seems a little bit crazy. Last time he played Atlanta, so this is the second matchup of the year. First time, 313 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tanner, since you do have that quarterback streamer article, is this a guy that you're willing to go back to again, second time around in this matchup?
Absolutely. Teddy, I really hit on my streamers this week on that article. Teddy was another one that was in it. Herbert was the third. So it really came through this week. And I compared the Panthers and the Bengals offense in the sense that they're two new offenses and new systems with like three solid receiving options. And I just really like what I've seen from the Bengals and the Panthers so far. Teddy got it done in that tough divisional matchup against the Saints, and now he plays in division again against a much worse defense. And I think Teddy looks really good. Like I feel like he's hitting his spots. I feel like been very accurate. And DJ Moore has come out and balled out 2 weeks in a row. And I think the Falcons are going to have a really hard time stopping this offense. So I would definitely start Teddy this week.
Yeah, I think Teddy's a great start, especially if Christian McCaffrey comes back this week. I'm not completely sure if he is or not. But, I mean, that just takes how much burden off of Teddy Bridgewater, you know. Christian McCaffrey, arguably the best running back in the league. And, you know, Christian McCaffrey is always there to take a screen 70 yards to the house, and that just gives Teddy more points. Tanner, you hit on it. The weapons that he has with the new offense just seems perfect for Teddy Bridgewater. I'm just excited to see Teddy Bridgewater back after almost losing his leg a couple of years ago.
Right, and to your point with Christian McCaffrey, did return to practice today, showed up in a non-contact red jersey, took that sumbitch off pretty quick. I said he probably looked like Hulk Hogan, just ripping that thing off and ready to go. It seems like he's going to be back. As long as there's not a setback, I would assume he's back, and that's just good for the entire offense. Obviously, he catches passes, like you said. They should be in scoring position plenty. I love Teddy Bridgewater this week. It makes too much sense. He's just one of those situations you don't need to overthink it. One quick thing before I get into the last quarterback I have written down here. If you're watching on Twitter and you want to ask questions, participate at all, head over to YouTube, Flurry Sports on YouTube. In the chat there, we have a chat going right now. I will be checking it. If you have any questions, drop it there. We'll answer it for you. Last quarterback, though, he hasn't really been talked about this week from the people I've heard rating up, talking about ad drops. That's Derek Carr. He's owned in 35% of leagues, plays Cleveland, the team that just gave up 400 yards to Joe Burrow. Luke, I think Derek Carr is quietly getting it done this year, and I think he's perfectly capable of passing against the Browns. What's your thoughts on him for Week 8 specifically?
Well, yeah, you got to think so. Perfectly capable on passing against the Browns. I mean, they just gave up 406 yards to a rookie quarterback. And Derek Carr is a player who's by any means, but he's looking a lot better than he was the last couple of years at least. I think him and Gruden are finally finding that fits Carr the best, where he can just manage this offense, make plays when he needs to. I'm big on having a running back there to take the burden off your shoulders. And Josh Jacobs, I think, is a stud. I love watching him run. He runs so hard. But I think another huge thing for Derek Carr is that he has someone to stretch the field with Henry Ruggs, and that just leaves wide open over the middle for Darren Waller. That's when I watch Raider games, at least that's what it seems to happen. Is just Ruggs runs straight and Waller's over the middle, and more times than not they get a completion on that. But the thing that excites me obviously is the matchup against Cleveland. Just seeing what they did last week, or what Cincinnati did last week against them.
Yeah, Carr was the last name I had written down in the quarterback position. I actually went and pulled up his game logs like before we started the show, and I was taking a look at him, and he has multiple touchdown passes in every game since week 2, and he got it done against a really good Bucs defense last week. I think Henry Ruggs, Luke, opens up this offense so much, being able to go over the top. Nelson Aguilar is playing really good football too. I actually have Kyler Murray on a bye in my main league this week, and so I currently have waiver claims in for Carr, Burrow, and Carson Wentz. And I just talked about how much I love Burrow, but I actually like Carr more this week. So he's the number one quarterback as of right now that I'm going for.
I don't know what was going on there. Apparently, we had a slight little hiccup, I guess, in the connection, but we are still live. Thanks to everyone who continued to watch and join back again. That is odd, but we keep pushing along. We went through those 3 quarterbacks. Like I said before, the top Tua Tagovailoa is making his debut. I question if that's a good idea or not. But let me pose the question like this. Is Tua more exciting than the three quarterbacks we talked about? Or are you just taking a wait and see, willing to leave him on waivers, Luke?
I think you have to take a wait and see. I think the Dolphins' offense is still, at least for me, it's still somewhat of a question mark. I don't know if I completely like them or not. But especially over the quarterbacks we just talked about, I don't think I'd touch Tua. Um, if you like some risk, go ahead, take Tua. It's a big question mark there, big unknown. Could be a good one, could be a bad one. But for that reason, I think I just leave Tua on the waivers this week, see what he does, and pose that question next week.
Completely agree. I don't know how you can like have the guts to take Tua over some of these other guys when you haven't seen Tua play yet. Definitely waiting and seeing, and I like just completely agree. I don't really got much to say other than that.
Is there any other quarterback you guys want to talk about, or do those four pretty much sum it up for Week 8 waiver wire guys?
That was it for me.
Yeah, that's most of what I had written down.
Cool. Let's head to running backs. I think this gets a lot more messy, a lot of names available, a lot of question marks in terms of injuries. First one I'll talk about is over the 60% mark. He just went over it today. He was around 50% owned even just last night. So make sure to look and make sure Boston Scott is owned already in your league. If he's not, pick him up. Obviously, Miles Sanders is going to continue to be out for this week. We saw what he did last week in Miles Sanders' absence. And Boston Scott has a matchup with the Dallas Cowboys, which any of us could at least get a touchdown against, I think. I'd like to think I could hit that 3 yard per carry mark, but I'm not sure how many times I could do it. I don't think we even need to discuss Boston Scott. Just make sure he's owned. The situation we need to talk about is in the same exact game for this upcoming week. That's Seattle versus the 49ers. All kinds of running back headaches here. So let's start with Seattle. Chris Carson got hurt. He's likely out for a couple weeks, I would assume. Foot injury, I believe. So his backup, Carlos Hyde, 7% owned, looked good. He should be the top pickup out of this backfield. Now, Carlos Hyde dealing with a hamstring injury, a little hamstring tightness. I would assume he plays, especially against his former team, right? But if he doesn't get to go, then Travis Homer is the next one up. Travis Homer, also a knee injury, could miss. So, I mean, watch that. If both of them miss, then it's DJ Dallas. He is for sure unowned in your league. He's a rookie. I don't know if I would be willing to, even if he's the starter, I don't think I need to start him. I think the same is probably true for Travis Homer. I guess Luke, how do we even want to talk about this backfield? Let's just assume Chris Carson's out. If Carlos Hyde is healthy, where do you rank him in terms of like RB2 or flex this week? And if he is out, are you willing to play either of those other two guys this week?
Well, if Carlos Hyde is in, I think he should be on someone's team, not on the waiver wire.
Okay.
I know they play San Francisco this week, who has a great rush defense, at least this year. This seems to me like a game where Pete Carroll just let Russ throw the ball to, coming off a loss. This seems like a statement game that we're still here. We're still the best team in the NFL. Yeah, sure. Carlos Hyde is a good enough back. He's been in the league for a while to play him and not have so much concern to play him at a flex. But if he's out, then I don't think you touch this backfield at all because, like I said, it just seems like a Russell Wilson 450-yard passing game, 4-touchdown game.
Yeah, I'm not excited. I think there's going to be just a reliance on the passing game this week. The vibes that I got from the injury news that I was reading and listened to is that Travis Homer is pretty likely to miss. And I think there's a good chance that Carlos Hyde is limited in practice all week and then ends up suiting up. So if I'm picking somebody up, it's definitely Hyde, and it's not DJ Dallas. Pete Carroll came out and had complaints about like DJ Dallas and pass protection and out hurt them at the end of the game. Like I don't know if you guys saw that play, but they like blitzed Wilson and the guy went straight up the line and he was headed right for DJ Dallas. And DJ Dallas like sprinted to the left and like avoided him and like somehow didn't see him. I just don't think there's a lot of trust there. So I'm definitely not starting him. And I really don't have like any confidence in throwing Hyde in my lineup. But I do think if he's healthy, he will see like you're at least guaranteeing some volume in the Seahawks offense in your lineup for that week.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I do, like, gut feeling, I would assume Carlos Hyde plays. Hamstring tightness, it's not great, but it's also the most work he's gotten since Houston, I guess. So I'm sure he's a little bit tight today. I'm pretty confident he should be able to go, though. Now, going over to the other side of this game, obviously Mostert was out against the Patriots this week. Jeff Wilson exploded. Okay, should we overreact to Jeff Wilson? No, because now he's hurt on the IR. Done. Mostert, I believe, is still going to be out, presumed still out. Jerick McKinnon was, a no-show last week. Got me some negative points in my fantasy week, so thanks to him. Actually, I've played him and Cam Newton in the Scott Fish Bowl, that big league. Got 2 negatives. That was a fun time. So JaMycal Hasty is the guy that everyone's overreacting to, maybe correctly reacting to. Had 9 carries, 57 yards. Has really good, 7% owned. Like we said, has a matchup with Seattle this week. It looks good. I guess he would be the one that I trust the most. But there's no chance that Jerick McKinnon is a no-show against Seattle this week, in my opinion. And the other person I think we need to begin talking about is Tevin Coleman. I think he has an outside chance to return this week, but it's still possible. I think next game he is probably going to be back. Owned in just 21% of leagues. As soon as he's back, he's getting playing time. Like, whatever you want to say about JaMycal Hasty, whatever you want to say about McKinnon, they both have looked good at times this year. Coleman's going to get the run. He's the trusted guy. So, I don't know. Tanner, in terms of this backfield, let's pretend someone got mad and dropped McKinnon as well. So if you're looking at Hasty, McKinnon, and Coleman, all 3 of them out there, where would you put the claim in for this week?
It's tough because you don't know how the injury news is really going to shake out yet, and you have to make that call now. So you're kind of just taking your shot and betting there. Shanahan came out and he was talking about McKinnon, and he was like saying he's gotten work. We kind of wanted to give him a break to rest him, which I don't really buy. No. Like 2 weeks in a row now, he hasn't seen a lot of work. I just don't think they like him very much. I probably am most interested in Hasty. I just have a feeling that he's going to see the most carries and work this week. He's the one that got work when Wilson came out of the game, not McKinnon. So that's how I see it going. I think Coleman, though, if you don't need to start this week, I might be putting it on Coleman. I'm not putting a lot on either guy, but I think you could see a situation where in a few weeks with Mostert out, it's now Coleman is the main guy. And obviously the main guy in San Francisco is somebody you want to be starting in your lineup. So I feel like the best guy to take a shot on there is Coleman. And if McKinnon got dropped, I don't even think I would be that interested in adding him.
I agree with you. I don't think it'd be a terrible idea either to maybe drop McKinnon, pick up Coleman and Hasty this week. I know Hasty, he had 6.3 yards per carry against the Patriots last week. Like you said, he was the one getting work when Wilson went down. I don't see why they don't keep trying to ride his hot hand a little bit here. Obviously Hasty, he's going to be a flex start in very deep leagues. But I think at this point, bring Coleman back if he's not If he's hurt, whatever, leave him on your bench, start him next week, whatever. But even Coleman's had a couple injuries. If he goes down again, Hasty's the guy. If you're going to pick up Coleman, I think you might want to think about picking up Hasty too.
That's fair. I'm a McKinnon believer, so I'll probably go down with the ship if that's the case. I think in a game with Seattle, in terms of Seattle can't cover, they can't really, obviously they can't rush the passer, but they really just can't cover anywhere on the team. I would assume Jerick McKinnon gets more run, but yeah, Hasty's probably the top dog for this week. Looking at the RB snaps usage, if you go to FlurrySports.org right now, under the NFL tab, we have some good running back snaps, wide receiver target share, some good stats here. But in terms of the 49ers last game, looks like McKinnon played 18% of the snaps, Hasty about 23, Jeff Wilson played 56 before he left, and obviously they like Kyle Juszczyk quite a bit. Honestly, I don't hate Kyle Juszczyk this week. He's a great receiving weapon. They clearly like to use him as a receiver more so than a runner. I'd still put him after McKinnon and Hasty, but I think in terms of just DFS, maybe sneaky play there. Let's get off of this game because it makes me confused and angry talking about it. But Zach Moss, rookie running back for Buffalo, 7 carries, 47 yards, 3 catches, 25 yards, 41% owned. Plays New England this week. Nearly a 50-50 split with Singletary last week. He is a bruiser, so I would assume if they got into the red zone and on the goal line, he probably is going to be the goal line back if Josh Allen doesn't take it, I guess. More so than Singletary for sure. I like Zach Moss quite a bit, and I think he does need to be owned. We obviously just saw what Jeff Wilson did to the Patriots. A very different team. I would assume Patriots respond in some kind of way. But I think Zach Moss needs to be owned. Luke, what's your thoughts on him for this week and maybe beyond?
Yeah, Zach Moss is still a question mark here to me. I drafted him, and I've been just stashing him on one of my teams. I'm not really sure what to do with them. But it seems like, that 50-50 split, he's starting to, work his way up in the depth chart. To me, yeah, go ahead and pick him up because if this trend continues, he might be the starting running back for the Buffalo Bills by the time fantasy playoffs rolls around. But matchup with New England, they just got all ran over. It seems like Belichick will try to, stop the run this time, instead of getting run over, let Josh Allen beat you with his arm. But, you said Zach Moss probably gets the goal line work. It just worries me, like Patriots running backs worry me that, Cam Newton's going to steal the touchdowns. It just worries me that Josh Allen's going to steal the touchdowns. But, I mean, if it's going up to a 50-50 split, I think Zach Moss is definitely, a pickup this week and maybe even a stash if that trend continues for him to just keep climbing the depth chart.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Singletary has had the backfield to himself for a few weeks now when Moss has been out, and Singletary maybe put together one good week there. Like, the Bills haven't been able to run the ball at all recently. I think that's a big part of the reason why they're struggling. And Moss was finally good to go and healthy for this game, and he looked much better than Singletary did, was a lot more effective. And like you said, if it comes down to the goal line, it's going to be Moss getting that and not Singletary. So I think the Bills are a good team, and they've had some struggles on offense lately, but I think that could turn around, and I think Moss is definitely a really good stash. I also have him in another league, and he's been on my bench, and I had some buys this week, so I had him in my starting lineup as one of my flexes, and Deontay Johnson was sitting on my bench, and I was watching the Steelers pregame, and Deontay Johnson was standing next to Big Ben, catching passes and chatting him up the whole time. So I was like, all right, I'm throwing in Deontay for this. So I'm glad I did that. But yeah, I mean, like, I think Moss, like, he could be really talented, and I think he's had some flashes here and there. So he's a guy that I want to keep on my bench and potentially maybe even start this week if you need to.
Yeah, Bills need to run the ball this week. We've seen how to stop Josh Allen. It's very clear how to stop Josh Allen. Bill Belichick knows how to stop Josh Allen. I mean, we've seen everyone do it. If you keep giving him different looks, obviously Greg Williams. Say what you want about the Jets. Greg Williams is a phenomenal defensive mind, and all he did the entire game was switch up looks, confuse Josh Allen, and obviously only touchdown in the game was from the Jets. He was capable of stopping Josh Allen with a bunch of nobodies on defense. Patriots also have a bunch of nobodies. I would assume the same type of thing happens this week. Bills know that. Bills need to establish the run, make everyone settle into the game a little bit. I think that bodes well for Zach Moss. In terms of facing New England, you want to establish the run. I would assume you're in the physical guy, not necessarily the elusive, flashy guy. I mean, you want to make a statement. They want to prove that this is their division now. You want to come out, punch him in the mouth, and I think Zach Moss is the guy to do that. Speaking of punch in the mouth, let's talk about the Jets running back here. Breaking my heart, LaMichael Pirine stealing snaps, stealing carries away from Frank Gore. I don't know if I should be talking him up, but LaMichael Pirine owned in 18% of leagues. Faces the Chiefs, a cool 20-point underdogs for this week. I think the line may have come down to 18 or something, but very clearly going to be a blowout. I would assume the more electric running back, more of a pass-catching running back, and LaMichael Pirine is going to get the run yet again. Looking at the running back data on FlurrySports.org, Pirine 70% of the snaps last week to Frank Gore's 28. Both of them 11 rushing attempts, but Pirine edged him out in routes. Pirine ran 16 routes to Frank Gore's 3. Clearly, they are figuring out that they can use a running back in the passing game. If only they had someone more talented than both of them, but no one on the team anymore. LaMichael Pirine, I've said it multiple times, you have to have, if there's a starting running back for a team, a majority leader running back for an NFL team, they need to be owned. Obviously, the scoring opportunity isn't big for the Jets in any week, but if Pirine's going to give volume, Tanner, he at least needs to be owned in 50% of leagues, but where are you, or how exactly are you valuing Pirine? Not necessarily for this week. I know it's a tough matchup, but going forward, is he like a RB4, or is he not even that high for you?
Sure. I think you can say RB4 if he's getting the volume there. But if I'm playing somebody and I look in their flex position and I see they got LaMichael Pirine there, I'm going to be pretty happy. I mean, like the Jets maybe are good for like one touchdown a game right now, and they're just not moving the ball. And he's also splitting work with Frank Gore too. So, I mean, he fell in the end zone this week, but it's like, is that really going to happen again? Like, I would put a lot of money on it being no. So, I mean, every time we bring up a Jets player, I'm just super hands off, and I'm sticking with the status quo.
I got another one later, so buckle up.
Yeah, I think if you watched any show that I've been on this year, you know how bad I think the Jets are. I think that they would lose to most college teams, in my opinion. I mean, Tanner, you said it. He's still splitting time with Frank Gore. I don't like that. The Jets don't score points. What does, I'll throw it on the flip side here. What does make me a little more happy compared to Frank Gore is just the 16 routes compared to Frank Gore's 3. I mean, he's there. He can catch passes. He can run. It's likely all year the Jets are going to be in passing situations. So he's going to get some PPR points there. Might even find a couple of receiving touchdowns. I mean, I'm just scraping at the bottom of the barrel here to try to find things that I can say good about the Jets offense and LaMichael Pirine.
I mean, I don't know why I'm finding myself with Jets love this year. Just thinking about comparing him to like those 49ers guy and Seahawks guys, maybe I'd take Hasty over him, but I'm not sure. I think if I'm thinking long term, I would probably add Pirine. I don't know. It's not like I think Pirine's going to emerge as this amazing player by any means. He's already getting all of the work, and he's doing nothing with it. But Yeah, I think he's capable of garbage time touchdowns. We talked about garbage time quarterbacks. Maybe P. Ryan can clean it up. Clearly, it's not Frank Gore falling into the end zone, unfortunately. So maybe it'll be him. That's all the running backs I have. Do you guys have anyone else written down that we should discuss first?
Just taking a look. I know we kind of mention it every week, but another look at that Rams backfield. Do you think Malcolm Brown's
Yeah,
worth any value at all?
I don't. He's good. Like what I said. I don't remember who I said it to last night. I guess I said Malcolm Brown looks like Todd Gurley does now. Like they want someone to replace Todd Gurley. I think he looks like Todd Gurley right now. He's not very good at football, but I mean, I can look at he had 40% of the snaps last night to Daryl Henderson's 55. Cam Akers, I'm so pissed off.
Me
I
too.
already tweeted it off out earlier, I guess, today. Sean McVay came out and said we need to get Cam Akers the ball more. This was after like a 7 or 9 carry performance that he destroyed. I think he had like 6 something yards per carry. Says we need to give him the ball more. Next week plays 1 snap. Last night plays 3 snaps. 0 recorded touches because his 1 carry got called back by a penalty. It's stupid. Um, I don't think Malcolm Brown's worth an ad, but that's also banking them making a good decision because Cam Akers is clearly more talented than him. I think Cam Akers is clearly more talented than Daryl Henderson, even though he has looked uh, much better than I thought he would. I don't know, Tanner. Do you have any thoughts on this backfield?
Yeah, I was pretty invested in Cam Akers this year. He came out in that Washington game. He had like the 9 carries for the 60+ yards, ripped off like a really nice 45-yard run, and I was like, and I went and I traded Darius Slayton for Akers that week because I need running back help. I just wanted to stash him on my bench and see what happened. I'm pretty strong a receiver in that league. And then he came out and saw like the 1 snap last week and then this week, and they didn't get him the ball again. Um, it's just crazy. Like he starts the season off slow, has 1 injury, and then he's just been overtaken at this point. I wasn't willing to drop him after last week because I was still hopeful, but after this week, I mean, I think at this point you can clearly drop Akers with some buys coming up. Like I don't know if you're going to be able to roster him and keep him on your bench, but if you can, I still think it's interesting. They have a buy coming up, but um, I think Henderson's going to continue to see the most touches in this backfield, and I think he looks serviceable. And uh, I'm not too interested in Malcolm Brown because I think he's going to play second to fiddle to Henderson for the rest of the season, or Cam Akers if Cam Akers becomes a thing when he does. But yeah, it's just disappointing because I feel like Cam Akers could be great if he got the work.
Yeah, he sure could. He sure could. Uh, yeah, he keeps saying that Cam Akers isn't getting time on the field because he hasn't been able to establish a rhythm. And I would say it's very tough to establish a rhythm with one app where you don't even get the ball. But whatever. Sean McVay he's a mastermind. He's really out thinking us all. Any other running backs to talk about?
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is interesting to me, and Gus Edwards, just because I mean Mark Ingram had the injury. I'm not too excited for either of them, but the Ravens are coming off a bye, and I think Dobbins has looked like the best running back in that backfield this year. Like he gets a few receptions here and there, and he makes explosive plays. So maybe they come off the bye and they're like, okay, we're gonna give our second round rookie running back the ball more. Am I projecting that to happen? Probably not. I think Gus Edwards could be a decent start. Could like decent start this week if Mark Ingram is out. That's a tough Steelers matchup, though. Probably one of the worst matchups for running backs. But if you can afford to stash Dobbins on your bench, I would be looking to do that because he has the draft capital. I think he's looked super talented this year. And if the Ravens can turn it around on offense, like they want to run the ball, so I think he's pretty interesting.
About Gus Edwards, I would just say if he doesn't get a touchdown, I don't think he's worth it over the next 2 weeks just because he is that between the tackles guy. A lot of times he's the end of the game guy to grind out the clock. Plays Pittsburgh this week. You talked about how tough that matchup that is. Next week he goes to the Colts. That's another really tough matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Then he gets Patriots, which easier. maybe they turn it around by then. Then Tennessee, then Pittsburgh again. Um, yeah, if Ingram is out, I do like J.K. Dobbins. If Ingram's in, still a full stay away from me. To your point, let's talk about some of these wide receivers. A lot of value opened up because of injuries. Biggest, most notable one was Odell Beckham Jr. going down. Rashard Higgins coming in, less than 1% owned in ESPN leagues. Plays the Raiders this week. He caught all six of his targets for 110 yards. More possession receiver. I think he is probably a good add as of right now. I don't know, Luke. Is he a talking about in terms of PPR? Is he a wide receiver 3 or higher, or do you think that big production was more of a mirage?
I'm leaning more towards maybe even higher than a wide receiver 3. I know Baker Mayfield's been kind of erratic, to say the least, as this year goes. But I mean, they just lost, Odell Beckham, who is still, in my opinion, is one of the best receivers in the league. They need someone to run that number one spot because Jarvis Landry is just, I don't think he's a good enough player to be that number one receiver. I mean, Higgins caught every one of his targets last week. 110 yards is awesome, not even starting a game. And they're playing a Raiders team who's given up, I think, a combined receiving core 40 points a game to receivers, which is, that's right up Baker Mayfield's alley. I assume the Browns are going to keep trying to throw the ball to keep Mayfield consistent off of what he did last week. So I'm high on Higgins this week, and I think if Higgins shows a good week, I think that Higgins could be a player that you pick up this week, and he might score for you as long as this rest of the fantasy year goes. He might be a big pickup for the rest of the year for you.
I definitely see the potential with Higgins there. Like you said, Baker's been erratic throughout the season. I don't have a lot of trust in him, and so that bleeds into Higgins. But I've always kind of just got this vibe with Higgins that he has a good chemistry with Baker. Like, that's just what I've always seen when I watch them play. And Jarvis came into the season off of a surgery. I don't remember what it was, and he just hasn't looked like he did last year. And so I don't know how healthy Jarvis is right now. And I mean, Higgins could definitely be sneaky. And I think he's going to continue to see targets on a weekly basis. He's not one of my top wide receiver ads, but I think you can do worse.
And Landry's playing with a broken rib, I believe they were saying. So, I mean, one bad hit and he's probably out. So we can see Higgins be the guy at some point. I was saying after the Odell injury that maybe go to Jacksonville for one of their receivers, since that's pretty much the only thing Jackson has. I think they do still want to move Njoku. I don't think the Hooper injury has any effect on that. And the biggest effect on that is the guy we'll talk about later with Harrison Bryant showing out. I don't know. I would just be surprised if the Browns didn't bring somebody else in, since they are in a position to contend for the first time in a long time. But yeah, I like Higgins, and to your point, he for sure has chemistry with Baker Mayfield. Another guy to talk about, Brandon Ayuk, under that 60% mark. Plays Seattle this week. I mean, you don't have to say much more than that, but I will. Deebo Samuel out next couple games with a hamstring injury. Ayuk, 6 of his 7 targets last week he caught for 115 yards. Obviously, they can get him the ball in creative ways, handing him the ball and stuff like that as well. Terrific with the ball in his hand. Odell Beckham-like in terms of he can take any touch to the house. I like Brandon Ayuk quite a bit, and he for sure needs to be owned in every league. I think he is I'd say wide receiver 2 this week. I think he for sure has that upside. What do you think about him, Tanner?
Yeah, I think he's a great pickup, and you can definitely play him this week. I mean, when a young receiver who carves out a role for himself like he has, and if you look at his fantasy performances, a game of 18, a game of 12, and then 14 this last week, that's three pretty solid performances um, in like 6 weeks that they played. And so when you see a guy that just is kind of just getting it done every now and then, like I think it says a lot. And Debo's out now, and with the way the running game looks and all their injuries, like I think they need him, and they're going to need him to win that game. And Seattle is kind of bleeding points to the wide receiver position right now. So yeah, I think Ayuk's a great pickup.
Yeah, I talked about a couple of weeks ago how Justin Jefferson might be like a catalyst to try to get that Minnesota offense going a little bit. I think the same thing could be said here, especially with all the, we just talked about their big question marks at the running back position and Deebo Samuel. This seems like a game where they're just going to unleash Brandon Ayuk, give him as much as he can, see what he can do with it. Hopefully he can, carry this offense on his back. I know that's a lot to ask for from a rookie receiver, but like you said, Zach, he has some Odell tendencies in him where he can do almost anything when he has the ball in his hand. I don't see why he wouldn't touch the ball a lot this week, especially, every time I see a receiver matchup against Seattle, a light bulb goes off my head that is this the guy that I need to pick up this week and start on my flex. And I think you're certainly right, too, that he's definitely, in my mind, a wide receiver, too, this week.
And obviously, outside receivers continue to do well against Seattle. They'll move Ayuk everywhere. Good matchup there. But on top of that, a lot of times you see these rookies, they get elevated to the number one receiver role, and it seems like, oh, this ginormous opportunity, he's going to blow up. But now defenses are game planning to take him away, and he doesn't perform. He gets the benefit of George Kittle is still the number one takeaway for the defense, obviously. And while the running game is beaten up, I think Seattle still needs to be like, we have to stop the running game first and force Jimmy Garoppolo to beat us as well. So he may not even be the secondary focus of this defense, even though they know they can't stop the pass anyway. So I really like Brandon Ayuk this week. A guy that came off of IR last week, Sterling Shepard, kind of a surprise late removal going into the game, caught 6 of 8 targets for 59 yards and a touchdown. 39% owned. Definitely the number one wide receiver for the Giants. That's not saying a ton, but Sterling Shepard, I don't think we need to talk about him too much, but I think he needs to be owned. Instead, let's just skip him a little bit here. Scotty Miller, 9% owned, plays Giants this week, Monday Night Football. We talked about Chris Godwin's out. There's still Mike Evans there, but it's an injured Mike Evans. There's Gronk there, but it's a slow Gronk. Scotty Miller's been looking good. Tom Brady is comfortable targeting him. 6 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown last week. In terms of, I don't know, like Scotty Miller needs to be owned, I guess. But Luke, would you pick up Scotty Miller over the 3 previously mentioned players, Higgins, Ayuk, Shepard, or is he fourth in that line just because you're questionable, I guess, about his value past this week?
I think the second option you said, I don't know how I feel about Scotty Miller. Like you said, Brady looks comfortable throwing to him. I think the only player that I feel comfortable starting in that Buccaneers offense is Chris Godwin. But obviously, he's not playing this week. So I think it's just too big of a question mark what Brady's going to do now with Godwin out. I think it's a high risk that could end up with a high reward. If you need a receiver, you need like a flex or something, you're in desperate need, go ahead, pick him up and start him. He's got a high ceiling, I think, this week. It's just tough, to take one Tom Brady receiver who's not like an absolute stud like Randy Moss or Wes Welker or something like that and have confidence that he's going to be the guy this week, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Brady is. I've heard a few people say, and I think it's really true. He's just taking what the defenses are giving to him right now. Like I know Bruce Arians came out after that game, and he's like, "Yeah, we knew Scotty was gonna have a big game because of how the Raiders were gonna play Mike Evans in that game." And I don't have the defensive knowledge and scheme breakdown to know how specifically they're gonna guard maybe an outside receiver, like depending on the defense in the given week. I mean, I feel like Scotty Miller has been a trap a couple of weeks now. Like, I want to say it was week 2 or week 3, like Godwin was out, and you're like, oh, Scotty Miller should be a great play this week. And then he has like 1 catch in the week. And Godwin came out another week, and then he did the same thing. So it's hard to trust him. And he would be my 4th guy out of the players we've talked about so far.
In terms of matchup for Tampa Bay, Scotty Miller's been getting moved all over. Tyler Johnson's still there. I really like Tyler Johnson, by the way.
I
Out
have
of
a move to pick him
Minnesota.
up in Dynasty.
Yeah, he's a stud. It looks like they're gonna probably put James Bradbury on Mike Evans, which would leave. I guess it would leave Ryan Lewis to cover Scotty Miller. If Logan Ryan plays safety, if he comes down into the slot corner role, that's a little bit there. Scotty Miller probably has the best matchup out of this wide receiver core is what I can see right now, which is interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I, to your point, I don't know if I necessarily want to trust it, but I think he is capable of a start this week if you need a streamer. A guy that needs to be owned and he keeps getting disrespected. I'll keep talking about him all week, every week. Cole Beasley, owned in 42% of leagues, plays New England this week. Obviously, you can attack New England in the slot. There's no surprise. Cole Beasley, wide receiver, 22.5 PPR. Again, owned in 42% of leagues. Continues to be a security blanket for Josh Allen. If they want to take away Josh Allen's deep ball, give him different looks. The one thing he can do is check down, and there's Cole Beasley, and I really like him in PPR, half PPR especially. But Tanner, what's your thoughts on Cole Beasley, not just for this week but beyond? Do you think he keeps up this type of pace?
Yeah, I do actually. We talked about him on the show last week, and we were like, yeah, he's a good pickup, he's a good play. And then he came out and he's had 2 good weeks in a row. And with John Brown banged up and the running game not looking that great, like he's like the dependable option for Josh Allen right now. And I think Cole Beasley is a really good player, and he's getting it done. And I feel like of all the receivers we talked about, um, he's probably the most. I mean, I like Ayuk a lot, so he's probably the second most like. I would say he's the most dependable option, and probably the second best option for a play this week. I mean, I feel like, hey, you want to get a guaranteed 10 points in your lineup, throw in Cole Beasley, and he has the upside if he scores a touchdown. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Cole Beasley is definitely someone who's caught my eye, not just this year, but throughout his career. Zach, I know you being a Packer fan, watching Packer Dallas games every year. It seems like Cole Beasley, is always wide open in the middle of the field, and that's what it seems like he is with Buffalo. He consistently gets 5+ receptions every week, and the weeks he doesn't get, the weeks he doesn't get 5 receptions, he gets a touchdown. So he's scoring points consistently in fantasy football. Like you said, if Belichick will probably try to take away Josh Allen's deep ball, which just opens the door for Cole Beasley to just keep doing what he made a career out of, and finding those holes in the zone, finding openings on crossing routes, and running with the ball. Josh Allen seems to have some rapport with Cole Beasley here, and I don't think his 11 catch, 112-yard game last week is an outlier or anything. I think that he's really a big part of this offense, and he's one that is going to check down, and then set up a deep ball. So he's just going to get a couple check downs in a row before he doesn't get a deep ball.
Yeah, it just seemed like obviously he was going to break out this year. Again, he switched his number back to 11 like he was with Dallas, so clearly it's the double ones right there. Brandon in the YouTube chat, and this is a question that him and I have been talking about quite a bit, and I think it's worth talking about. Why is Nick Foles a thing? And that's a fantastic question. He is not a good quarterback. Is he better than Mitch Trubisky? Honestly, I was saying last night they need to put Trubisky in there, and I truly believe it. Um, but first, let's just answer, I guess, for fantasy. Does he need to be owned in even 16-team leagues right now? Review?
No, I don't think so. I think him and Sam Darnold are probably the 2 quarterbacks you can leave off of all rosters.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of Nick Foles playing, but every time I do, I feel like he's missing throw after throw. Like he has receivers open downfield, and you'll see him wind up to take that deep shot, and you're like, oh, and then you realize like 3/4 of the way through the ball flight that it's going to be off, and it's really not even close. Um, and yeah, I don't trust him.
There's just some players, if you just think about from an NBA or basketball perspective, you can't put them in the starting lineup. They need to come in off the bench and bring that kind of energy Tim Tebow, hey, he was the type of quarterback for the Broncos. Bring him in the fourth quarter. Doesn't matter about the first three. Tebow's going to lead us to victory. I am not against the Bears going Trubisky first half, Nick Foles second half. No matter what Trubisky does, Trubisky throws 3 times, that's fine. Bench him at halftime because we know the interceptions are going to come. I think that's probably the best strategy. And at this point, Bears need to try something. I know they're 5-2, but good God, they are no good on offense. They are. Aside from Nick Foles, though, Jesus, between Matt Nagy's love for Cordero Patterson and Sean Payton's love for Taysom Hill, I don't know which one's worse. Because neither player is very good at football, and both of them desperately want to look like an offensive genius by using them correctly, and it's not working, believe it or not. Back to wide receivers. Oh, what was that?
Sorry, I said it's wild to me that anyone has a starting quarterback who's like Nick Foles. Nick Foles has been on 5 different teams, and he's a starting quarterback now. I feel like no other team should do that unless Ryan Fitzpatrick's on your roster.
Yeah, I don't know. Nick Foles is making a lot of money too.
Right.
They can thank Jacksonville for giving him the money. I don't know how Jacksonville somehow got rid of his contract. Good for them. I don't know. It's ridiculous. And the Colts almost brought him in. That was his number one landing spot, but they decided to go Philip Rivers. I don't know if that was the right or wrong decision, but good God. I have Nelson Aguilar here as a wide receiver option, owned in 3% of leagues. He's interesting to me. Plays the Browns this week. Obviously, we talked about that matchup. Caught 5 of his 9 targets for 107 yards and a touchdown last week. He's had a touchdown in 3 straight games, in 4 of his 6 games this season. It seems like he is kind of having a little bit of a resurrection under John Gruden. He's getting more and more involved. I don't know if we necessarily even need to talk about him. I just think he needs to be someone to have on your radar. And if you're looking for a deep league streamer for this week specifically against Cleveland, I think he's certainly in play. And then I just have 2 other wide receivers here. You guys can give any thoughts you have on them or bring up guys that you also have written down. But Jalen Reagor activated. He should be able to come back this week, owned in 12% of leagues. Philadelphia needs pass catchers, so I think he makes sense. And then the other Jets guy I alluded to earlier, Denzel Mims, made his rookie debut. Caught 4 passes for 42 yards, I believe, all in the first half. Then the Jets realized they were winning, and they tanked the second half. Plays Kansas City. Obviously, Luke said earlier, Jets are going to be in scoring position pretty much all the time. And he is very, very good at football. So I think he is someone to have on your radar. Obviously, it's Reynolds throwing him the ball and Adam Gase drawing up plays, but he's at least worth an ad over, I don't know, who's a receiver that's unexciting? Marvin Jones? Like, I'd rather have Denzel Mims than Marvin Jones, maybe. Do you guys have any other wide receivers written down or any thoughts on either of those 2 guys?
Yeah, for Mims, like I knew I had kind of a later second pick in my dynasty startup draft, and I was like, okay, I'm taking Mims like before the NFL draft happened, because I loved what I saw in college, and he kind of fell in the draft, and I was surprised, and I was like, oh, maybe like he's not as good as I thought he was, but yeah, I agree. I think he's a really good player. And I need to go back and watch his highlights from that game and see his catches because he was a guy I was super high on, and then he went to the Jets, and then I kind of just took him off my radar. And I think Jalen Reagor is interesting. You know, everybody hated that Reagor got taken over Justin Jefferson in the draft, and it is looking like that hate might have been deserved because Justin Jefferson looks awesome. But like you said, they need pass catchers, and I wouldn't go ahead and pick Reagor up. But he's definitely a guy I'm going to be watching this week, especially going against Dallas.
I think, yeah, if you're in like desperate need of a receiver, I think these 2, are good good guys to look at to pick up. Just because they seem like young guys, they seem like they can bring that spark to the offense. Seems like they can be involved in some pretty bad offenses. I don't know if you guys saw, just going back to Nelson Aguilar. Mina Kimes, she said Nelson Aguilar is the only person to go to Las Vegas and improve their reputation. I thought it was pretty fun.
I like Mina a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll stick on Aguilar here. I like him a lot. I think every time he catches a ball, it's just another shot to a Philadelphia Eagles fan's heart, which I think is very funny. But just scoring in 3 straight weeks, and he seems like him and Henry Ruggs on the outside. You could grab either one of them, but I think just scoring in 3 straight weeks, Nelson Aguilar has got to be on your radar for at least to place for stream instead of buys. Especially this week against a bad Cleveland defense. I'm sure I'm going to put Nelson Aguilar in my wide receiver streaming article this week.
And he should be. He's very quietly caught 3 touchdowns in 3 straight weeks. Even this week where he had 107 yards, it still seemed like a pretty quiet performance. I don't know. He needs to be talked about more. And I looked up Mims' snaps just from last week because obviously debut coming back from injury. He still played 79% of the snaps, was tied for the most targets among wide receivers. So I think only good things from Mims from here on out. Yeah, we'll see. Tough matchup this week, but it is what it is. Let's go to tight ends here. There's a few written down. Big. I don't get it. Dallas Goedert owned in 29% of leagues. He's, I would guess, coming back this week. He was eligible last week. If he's not coming back this week, I would assume he's back next game. But if he comes back this week against Dallas, that's going to be a tight end 1 week, maybe one overall. He needs to be owned no matter what. So, Luke, when Goddard comes back, whether Ertz is there or not, is he still like a top 10 tight end for you, do you think?
For sure. I mean, even when Ertz was there, at the beginning of the year, Dallas Goedert was a top 10 tight end. I know we talk about on our weekly rankings every Wednesday that tight ends are just a mess right now, to where to rank. I think Goddard comes back, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of start ranking them because you get a guy who I think is probably going to have top 7 weeks for the rest of the year if he's back and healthy. I was very high on him coming into the year. It seems like every time the Eagles play a 325 game as well, Dallas Goedert scoring 2 touchdowns. I don't know. I think Dallas Goedert's a great tight end. I think Doug Peterson likes him. Carson Wentz likes him. And I think, it's getting to that point where they even like him more than Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz might be on his way out of Philadelphia here soon. And Dallas Goedert's going to take the reins as that number one option on the Philadelphia offense. And I think that's beautiful to see out of a tight end on the waiver wire right now.
Those are the same vibes I get for the Eagles tight ends. It definitely feels like Ertz is on his way out. And it's just the path is so clear for Goddard, if assuming he's back and healthy. Like, if he is back and healthy, he should be a great play. Like, I feel like on a weekly basis. And going against Dallas this week, like, he has the talent to do it and the athleticism and the opportunity. And it's hard to find that at the tight end position.
I don't know why. There's been like zero news about him this week. Oh no, there's an update. I guess he's not coming back this week. I still think he needs to be a pickup though. Like when he's back, he's a tight end 1. So you guys, yeah, like we've been saying, the tight end position is a complete mess. If you have a tight end potential guy, pick him up, especially if you have an IR slot. So many people utilize that IR slot. Pick him up, put him there. I mean, at this point, I'd play him over guys like Evan Engram, who's 86% owned. I'd play him over Rob Gronkowski in a heartbeat. He's 90% owned. Yeah, I'd play him over Mark Andrews too. I don't give a shit.
Would you play him over Jimmy Graham?
Yeah. Jimmy Graham, he's an interesting guy for fantasy. I think you can sell high on Jimmy Graham. Just what I've seen from Cole Kmet. Kmet's clearly a better player. Obviously, we're dealing with the Bears and Matt Nagy here. But I would assume Kmet gets a little bit more involved as the year goes along. Jimmy Graham's still good. I think he's a top 10 guy. Like, whatever you want to qualify that as. If he gets 30 yards, I think you're a top 10 guy. But Cole Kmet is so good. And I think you can sell high on Jimmy Graham for guys who maybe drafted Zach Ertz and now they're trying to play guys like Chris Herndon or Darren Fells, or they're just, playing around with that. I think the way to go. Another tight end I have here, we talked about him earlier. Harrison Bryant, owned in 1% of leagues, plays the Raiders this week. Last week, no, Austin Hooper caught 4 of his 5 targets for 56 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was him, not David Njoku. Njoku did find the end zone, but Harrison Bryant, clearly the top receiving tight end weapon, should be even more involved now with Odell Beckham out. David Njoku possibly could be on the move. Even when Austin Hooper comes back, Hooper seems to be more of a blocking tight end than a receiving tight end these days. So maybe they run a lot of 2 tight end sets. Harrison Bryant is the receiving guy. Um, just talking about guys who could be potential top 10, he has just as much chance to be a top 10 tight end on a week-to-week basis as Hooper, as maybe not as Jimmy Graham, but as Hayden Hurst. I would put him on the same confidence level as him. Probably same as Jared Cook, same as Evan Engram, who cannot be used in any way right now. I don't understand him. But Tanner, what's your thoughts on Harrison Bryant?
Yeah, Bryant is actually pretty exciting to me. Yesterday on the show, we were talking about potential trade candidates, and we were talking about who we thought was most likely to get traded. And I don't know why I said this. He was on the list, but I just didn't think. But I think Njoku is extremely likely to get traded. Like we were talking about it earlier. No, the Browns don't like him, and I think he's out the door. And I just kind of have confidence in the work that Bryant is going to see going forward. So he's an exciting ad for me, and like I feel like he's guaranteed a certain amount of looks this week. And then Hooper, I believe, I know he had an appendectomy, and what is he out for 2 more weeks because of it?
I'll look to see if they say. I would assume for sure this week.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like I think you can definitely do worse, and I like the potential that Bryant brings for your team.
Yeah, I like Harrison Bryant's potential too. You just talked about Njoku getting traded, whatever. Being on the trade block. I think at the very least, Harrison Bryant can at least fill a tight end spot for you for maybe a couple of weeks here. And once he falls off, if he falls off, you can see if you can grab another tight end. I know we just talked about tight ends being a mess, but I think it's a good filler spot for at least a couple of weeks. If especially if Baker Mayfield can, I talked about earlier, can continue to grow off of what he did last game. It's just interesting to see how these tight ends are shaking out this year. Some big names are going down. These guys stepping up. It's just odd, but I think Harrison Bryant is definitely someone that, is there. You can start him for a couple of weeks and feel somewhat confident about it.
I would be very, very surprised if Njoku wasn't traded. He's such a valuable trade piece, not just because he's really talented, obviously, athletic tight end, but he has another year on his contract, I do believe. So if, a team like the Patriots wants to trade for him, they get that rookie salary for another year. They could maybe convince him to re-up. It just makes too much sense for the Browns to trade him if they can get anything for him. And I brought up earlier, Jaguars can trade a wide receiver for him. It's another young, talented piece to add to their offense. Clearly an upgrade over Tyler Eifert. I tweeted out immediately after the Beckham injury, I think, Chris Conley and a pick for David Njoku. I think that's fair. And if Chris Conley comes to this offense, I think that's an upgrade over everyone else they have after Rashard Higgins in terms of wide receivers. Just something like that. I think it makes too much sense for both sides. But yeah, Njoku needs to be on the move if I'm the Browns. I have one other tight end written down here. Kind of was talked about for a little bit, but then they went on a bye week and everyone forgot that he plays football, I guess. But Irv Smith, owned in 5% of leagues, plays Green Bay this week. Has turned in games of catching 4 of his 5 targets twice in a row. First for 64 yards, then 55 yards. Clearly, they want to get him more involved. And then his schedule looks really nice. I mean, he plays the Packers, the Lions, the Bears, the Cowboys, then the Panthers, then the Jaguars. So I would assume the Vikings are in all of those games. Vikings clearly are tanking on the season. They just traded away Ngakwe. They want to see what they have in Irv Smith, want to get him more involved, try to develop him clearly. Kyle Rudolph isn't going to be a receiving guy. He's more of a blocking tight end, maybe red zone threat. But I think Irv Smith, I'd him identical in terms of value to Harrison Bryant personally. Luke, what's your thoughts on Irv Smith? You've seen plenty of him, obviously, as a Packer fan.
Yeah, I think I'd even put him higher than Harrison Bryant. I think as far as the year goes, for the rest of the year,
Sure.
I just think that Austin Hooper plays more of a role in Harrison Bryant's success than Kyle Rudolph plays a role in Irv Smith's success. You know, I like to say that he has a good matchup this week against the Packers. Tight ends usually do well against the Packers. Of course, I'm one of the dumbasses who started Darren Fells last week and got absolutely nothing out of him.
Yeah.
But, like you said, Minnesota's tanking. They might as well see what rookies can do when they're going to be throwing the ball, because Minnesota's not a good football team, so they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Might as well. I don't know if Irv Smith is a rookie or not, or a young guy. What I'm trying to say is see what he can do, get the ball in his hands, and just like you said, he's got a great schedule coming up for tight ends. The mess that tight ends are. I think Irv Smith is a flyer you can take, and you may be surprised on what he's going to do for your fantasy team. I'm very high on Irv Smith for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I like Irv Smith too, and I agree with you. I actually do like him more than Bryant. I'm pretty sure it's his second year. I should know this. He's an Alabama guy.
Yes.
But okay, cool. Yeah, I feel like he's looked good on the field, and like 5+ targets on a consistent basis recently. Like that's nothing to scoff at, and I think he's talented. Like I really liked him at Alabama, and like you guys said, I think they're going to be throwing, and they want to get him involved. And Kyle Rudolph, like I don't think there's going to be a situation where it's like Kyle Rudolph gets taken off the field. Like Kyle Rudolph is still going to continue to be used, but Irv has like the talent and athleticism to turn those targets into maybe some big gains, and he gets used down the field a little bit. So yeah, I think Irv's a good pick.
And since I just found out Dallas Goedert isn't coming back, we should talk about Richard Rodgers, owned in 6.5% of leagues. Again, plays Dallas this week. Can't ask for much more. Mike McCarthy not only doesn't know how to use tight ends, he doesn't really know how to defend them. This Dallas team is so fucking bad. You can start whoever you want against them, but Richard Rodgers last week, 8 targets, caught 6 of them for 85 yards. Yeah. Anyone who can catch a ball for the Eagles has value just because they have a heartbeat. They're not sidelined. Carson Wentz is going to find them. In terms of, I don't know, like more than the 3 guys we talked about, or is he lower on that tier list?
Sorry, Zach, you were cutting out a little bit there, but is how do I see him compared to the 3 other guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like Wentz a pretty good bit this week. I definitely don't like Rodgers for any like season-long value, but this week it could be a good start for sure. Like the Cowboys are really that bad, and 8 targets last week. Like if he sees like 5 to 8 targets again, he could definitely be a good play. So I think that's a guy you could get like for pretty cheap in DraftKings, and he could throw together like a pretty decent week for you.
I could also see him falling into the end zone this week. I know Philadelphia makes it down to the red zone a little bit, and it always seems like a Carson Wentz madhouse scramble, go to right, go to the left, and end up rushing a touchdown. I mean, every time in that situation, someone's going to be open, and I think Richard Rodgers is, a big enough guy. He's got good enough hands to catch a touchdown, especially against Dallas. They are just so bad, man. Richard Rodgers, yeah, like you said, Tanner, I don't see a lot going forward, but this week it might be, if you need a tight end, this week might be a good week to pick him up, play him, have a little bit of confidence, because he probably will see some targets and maybe a touchdown.
Is this the Sunday night game? I'm trying to find him on DraftKings right now.
Yeah. It is.
It's annoying. I wanted him on the main slate. Let me tell you what his salary is for at least the all week long slate, 3,900, so very cheap. He was going to be less than, I don't know. He's pretty fairly priced. He's less than Robert Tanyan, so everyone who still wants to buy into Robert Tanyan, go for Richard Rodgers there. Any other tight ends you guys would like to talk about here?
Yeah, actually, I need to bring up his percent owned, but I'm pretty confident it's definitely less than 60. But yeah, Trey Burton, 10.2% owned. Um, the last 3 weeks, he's seen 5 targets, 6 targets, and 5 targets. And Trey Burton goes back to Philly with Frank Reich, and Frank Reich went and acquired Trey Burton this year. And Trey Burton's been running routes and he's been getting involved. He had that rushing touchdown last week. Um, and I don't know, just getting your tight end to like a rushing attempt. Like I kind of just like to see things like that. And the Colts are definitely going to continue to use tight ends. So I think you can do worse than Trey Burton. And I think Trey Burton has season long value too.
Yeah, I like. I'm a big fan of when players aren't used in their normal role. I think it's just fun to watch. It's fun to have them on fantasy. See, they can get a stupid touchdown here or there. Correct me if I'm wrong or not, but is Mo Alley Cox still hurt this year? Do you know his injury status coming in this week?
There really hasn't been very many reports. I think he's going to be back though.
Okay. I don't know if that hurts Trey Burton at all. Like we said before, Mo Alley Cox is like the Mercedes Lewis of the Colts. He's just going to there maybe catch a flat route every once in a while. But Trey Burton, to me, seems like he's the number one tight end in Indianapolis. I know we talk a lot about how Philip Rivers likes tight ends. Philip Rivers hasn't been great this year, but I think if he's going to be good, Trey Burton's the one he's going to start with. So I could see some season-long value with Trey Burton, going down the stretch in the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, we've talked about this Colts tight end core quite a bit in the Wednesday show, I feel like,
Yeah.
week to week. Him and Doyle will probably split snaps pretty much evenly. They'll probably run the same exact amount of routes. For whatever reason, I went back and watched some of the games. Phil Rivers just hates Jack Doyle. I don't know. Maybe he feels bad because Jack Doyle's Andrew Luck's best friend, and he doesn't want to have any kind of connection to Andrew Luck to prove that he's better than him. I don't know what it is, but Trey Burton definitely is the best tight end on the Colts. I do think he has season-long value, and he's a playmaker. I mean, he's kind of like the Eric Ebron uh, of past with the Colts, I guess. Um, yeah, I like him. He's one of a group of 15 to 20 guys that could finish top 10 each week.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't have confidence in him, but yeah, he should still get 4 to 5 targets. Let's talk about who is our top waiver wire ad, I guess. I can start, and I don't know where I'm going with the end of the sentence at this point. I am figuring out who it is right now. I should have thought about it. I mean, if Boston Scott's available in your league, pick him up. That's number one. I know. Okay, it's Brandon Ayuk. I think Brandon Ayuk's a monster this week. Plays Seattle. Seattle can't guard anybody. Deebo Samuel out. Running backs out. We've seen with running backs out in the past, they gave Ayuk some, rushing attempts. He's taken those to the house. I just think he's the ultimate playmaker. And like I said before, he may not even be the secondary focus of the defense. He may be the third. I like him quite a bit. What about you, Tanner? Who's your top waiver wire pickup of the week?
Yeah, it's Ayuk for me. I love what I've seen from him on the field. Like, I usually just draft players in fantasy who I love the talent of and that can make big plays and can blow up in your lineup on a given week. And Ayuk's a rookie, and I think he's only going to continue to get more involved. And Debo's hurt, and they need options right now. And I think Ayuk is going to be the guy, and I think he's going to be a good play this week. But another guy I really like is Cole Beasley too. Beasley's going to continue to get involved and see work, and Josh Allen likes him, and he's extremely dependable. So it's those two guys for me.
Yeah, I have those guys in my top three as well. My number one, I was talking about a lot, was Rashard Higgins. I think he's just going to see so many opportunities, especially if Cleveland, ends up trading, David Njoku. I think, Tanner, you said that it seems like they got good vibes there between Baker and Rashard Higgins. Jarvis Landry's not good enough to be, in my opinion, not good enough to be number one receiver. And I think Higgins can play both. He can go deep. He can catch passes over the middle. He can catch slant routes. He can catch curl routes. I just see a lot of volume going to Rashard Higgins, and I think they're going to keep riding Baker after that big game. Keep letting him throw the ball, see what he can do for the rest of the year at least. So I think Higgins will be a big benefactor of that.
Definitely seems like a wide receiver heavy week, and we just related that. If you have any other questions, we do have a waiver wire article up on flurrysports.org. These two will have their streamer articles up this week as well. So, I mean, that's related to waiver wire pickups. If you miss out on anyone, definitely check those out. But we'll be back tomorrow to talk about week 8 rankings. I am going to jump in and start those right now. So it's going to be another wild week with all these injuries. We'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Have a good one, guys.
Go Dodgers.